Guys, I just saw a movie that's completely redefined cinema. Let's go. All right, guys. So a couple of days ago, I had the pleasure, the honor, the extreme honor of watching Godzilla Minus One. So before I get into it, a little bit of backstory about me and Godzilla. I have always, since I was a kid, Godzilla versus Mothra, Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla, Godzilla, Son of Godzilla, Godzilla 1954. I watched so many Godzilla movies growing up that was my favorite of all the monsters. Sure, I knew about King Kong. I enjoyed King Kong, but I was always Team Godzilla. I remember just watching, I just remember being a kid and the level of just like hype and enjoyment you got watching Godzilla. I even watched a cartoon version of Godzilla. And then, I believe it was 1998 maybe, that America was coming out with the Godzilla movie. So of course I'm like, oh, I am so excited. I never forget, it came out on a Wednesday and I saw it the opening night. And my level of disappointment could not have been any higher. It was so terrible compared to the previous Japanese installments that I had loved growing up with. So after that movie, I kind of just stopped following the original stuff. And then in 2000, I think it was 14, when the new iteration of Godzilla came out, and I liked it. I loved the look of Godzilla. I appreciated how they used his roar, because that's he's got a couple of trademarks. Number one, it's the look. Number two, the roar. Number three, of course, the atomic breath. Those are the trademarks to make a really, really good Godzilla. So when I saw the 2014 version and I saw King of the Monsters and I saw Godzilla versus Kong, I was reserved to the fact that this is the best it can get, but I kind of stopped looking for the original stuff over in Japan. I didn't really know it was still coming out as prevalently as it is. And then I saw a trailer not a trailer. I saw, when I was looking at a movie, I was going to go see some movie, and I saw a preview, like the sign for the Godzilla Minus One. So I was like, oh, okay. But I kind of just put it out of my mind. Well, then it came out, I think it was December 1st. And I just kept seeing it posted and seeing it on my YouTube feed, and people just going crazy about this movie. Then over the weekend, my brother and his wife saw it, and they called me right away and were like, you guys see this movie? It's really, really good. So Monday, I went to go see it. Guys, I can't even put into words other than what I said previously. It redefined cinema. This movie was 100% perfect. It kind of like, if you've seen it, let me know in the comments what you thought. But if you haven't, think of it this way: you can take this same formula and make it a true horror movie, because you were so fixated on the characters. And I don't know if it was because it was subtitled, so you had to focus more to read, that you felt invested. But it really could have just been the acting. The story was so deep. There was emotion, there was drama, there was comedy, there was horror. Every facet of every subgenre in cinema was in this one movie. I said to the person beside me after the movie was over, I was like, this movie had no business being that good. Because you kind of watch a movie like that now as an adult through a lens of like, okay, it's not gonna be any more than just entertaining, because it's about a giant monster. So how really deep can it be? This completely changed the game. Now, before I go into more detail, speaking about Godzilla, I loved how when they first, it was a very, very good Godzilla. And what they did with the atomic breath, when you see it, you know what I'm talking about, was brilliant. And it makes more sense to the original of what Godzilla actually was. Man, and I left the theater on such a high. I just felt good. I just felt like, wow, I just watched a really good movie. Had I not done my previous top 10 horror of the year, this isn't even really particularly horror, but since it fits in every genre, I probably would have made it my number one. I mean, it really has something for everybody. It has romance. It's got feeling. Like there's a scene that made me shed a tear for real in a Godzilla movie. And when you watch it, you're gonna be like, okay, I know what you mean. Best Godzilla movie I've ever seen. Best movie for me overall of this year that I watched. I mean, I can't say enough good things. Each character, every single character, no matter how small, no matter how large their parts were, you felt what they were going through in every single scene. Every single scene. And then the icing on the cake was Godzilla. So when I think about this, I think about, when I touched on horror movies, I think of something like a slasher, right? If you could have some of the best slasher movies we've seen have had the slasher villain almost be like, the icing on the cake. But the cake part is the characters, is the story, and is what they are going through. Even the best of the best of the best slasher movies have not gotten this deep into the arc of a character or characters. It has not dug the well that deep. I'm trying to think of one that maybe has, and I can't think of anything. That's why I say this movie kind of redefines cinema and the way to look at cinema and the way that everything feels like it has to fit in this one box. It doesn't. It doesn't. And no matter what your subject matter is, if you're feeling, and not even about the characters, the music too, the score was great because every scene they had the right musical piece to play alongside that got the maximum reaction out of that scene. I mean, it was perfect. It was absolutely, unequivocally perfect. I cannot wait to see this movie again. And the crazy thing is, I think it's over 2 hours. It's a longer runtime, but it feels nothing like that at all. At not one point was I bored, and not one point was I looking at my watch. At not one point did I think this was getting long. And when it ended, it was perfect. It had a great opening. It had a great story. It had a great ending that didn't leave me wanting more, that didn't make me feel underwhelmed, like I didn't get enough. Everything worked perfectly. And I cannot talk about this movie and say enough good things. You experience this. You don't go watch this. You experience this. Every single person in the theater was glued from the opening scene to the end. You couldn't hear anybody fidgeting around. You couldn't hear people, like, there was nobody coughing. There was nothing. There was no sound in the theater. And that's the mark of how invested everybody was in what they were watching. I went to, 12 movies, this year in the theaters. Thanksgiving I had a great audience experience with that one because it was full to the brim, and for the movie we're trying to convey, it did a good job. This gave us the glued to the seat feeling, and I mean, you could hear a pin drop in the theater aside from what's happening on screen. And the direction was amazing. There was some certain scenes that the camera would just cut out that would lead to the anticipation of what's going to happen next. And when the payoff came, it was well worth it. If you have, I don't know how much longer it'll be in theaters because it's been in since the first. And when I found it out by me, they were starting to limit the screen, the times they had. So I think it might be on its way out. But man, if you can see it, see it. This movie is one of a kind. I mean, it's one of one for sure. I absolutely loved it, and I can't wait to see it again. If you have seen it, spoiler free, please get in the comments. Let's talk about this. This movie was amazing. Thank you for your time, guys. The Glad Horror Channel, the best horror channel here on YouTube. See you guys next time.